The outlook in terms of how investors should be digesting this too. Of course, the jobs report comes, but we are still awaiting what's to be expected on that stimulus frontier, which could provide a bit of a boost. For more on that, I want to bring on our next guest, Lamar Villere, is Villere Co. Partner and portfolio manager. Mr. Villere, thanks for taking the time to chat here. I mean, you just heard that discussion in terms of the underlying economy. We've been discussing all this week about the break in the data that we're getting there and what the markets are doing here. What's your reaction to this, and how maybe investors might be looking past the monthly jobs updates and more to what's going to be coming in 2021 as stimulus might come through there?
Sure. I mean, what I think you see today with a disappointing number and a strong market is what we've all kind of been suspecting for a while, which is nobody cares. Nobody cares about backward-looking metrics right now. Everybody's looking ahead to next year. What does the environment look like? Right now, things seem to be shaping up for a really benign environment. You've got a very accommodative Fed. You've got stimulus money coming. You've got what looks like government gridlock, which the market loves. Do nothing, that's fine. Do no harm. So when you really look at things as far as looking ahead, now, is that all going to magically happen in the first quarter? No. But I think the market's not going to expect it to. I think, generally speaking, as we look out a little bit further, things are in place for a pretty good situation. And I think the stimulus is going to happen. That's gravy, but really not even necessary. I mean, it's a sideshow relative to how important the Fed's stance is, and we don't see that changing anytime in the foreseeable future.
When you say you think the stimulus is going to happen, what specifically has been priced in? Are we talking about this bridge that's being negotiated right now in Washington, or something much bigger come January?
No, I don't think I'd be surprised if you see something much bigger. I think by the time we get into January, looking ahead to February, and you get a clearer picture of what's going on with COVID, I suspect you're not going to see, particularly if the gridlock, as we're expecting, does happen. I don't think the Republicans are going to become super generous in terms of massive amounts of stimulus. So I think there will be some, and that'll be helpful. But I don't think the market's expecting a massive amount of stimulus. Like I said, I really think what goes on at the Fed, as well as the outlook for the vaccines, is going to be more important.
Yeah, Lamar, let me push back a little bit on the stimulus idea and the idea that it could be a sideshow, because we've been hearing from a few guests here, when we talk about some of these unemployment benefits rolling off at the end of the month here, what that will do for a lot of consumers who are hurting. Other people have pointed out that the income from some of those groups on the fringe there is just not that impactful when you back up and look at the size of the economy here. Talk to me about how it will play into some of the top picks you have in some of these sectors that I assume would be dependent on a bounce back in consumer confidence, including Las Vegas stocks, Caesars Entertainment being one of the ones that you pointed out.
Sure. Well, let's start there. As you look at what's going on in Vegas, I mean, Vegas is essentially back now. The revenues aren't where they were. The hotels are all open. Within the Caesars, Caesars is one of the stocks that we like right now, and it's had a good run, but we think it's got more. The revenues aren't entirely back. However, what we're seeing is that they're able to get way better margins than they were getting before, and that's partially because of the new management structure that's in place, valuing profitability over just basic sales growth. But also, you're seeing some of these experiments in slashing marketing not having a very big impact on results. You're seeing, these guys are going through and shutting down all their local buffets. These things were losing in some of the regional casinos. These things were losing $2 to $3 million a year, and it was just sort of taken as a law, an unwritten law, that you had to have a massive buffet in a casino or else no one would stay there and gamble. Well, turns out that's not the case. So what we're seeing is companies like that, maybe the revenues are down, while people are going back to Las Vegas, maybe not in the same numbers, and you're not seeing certainly the same number of conventions, but you're seeing profitability actually improve significantly, and we don't see that changing even when the vaccine is sort of put the COVID to rest.
One sector that we have seen, of course, benefit in a big way during the pandemic is the tech sector. You talk specifically about the mega cap tech stocks, saying you think that's a fad in terms of the valuations that we have seen throughout the last several months here. You say it's a dangerous place to invest. How big of a pullback do you anticipate?
It's hard to tell. I mean, I think what we're initially expecting is just underperformance relative to some of the other areas. I mean, you look at the NASDAQ's up 38% year to 38 or 39% year to date, whereas, the value indices are actually slightly down. I mean, massive outperformance. So if we're looking ahead at where do we want to put our money, yeah, those tech stocks, a lot of them are going to do great, but they're priced to perfection. And the reason they're priced to perfection is because they got big, everybody pours their money into them, and it's this self-fulfilling prophecy that to us looks a lot like a bubble. Even though these are some great companies, we think from a valuation perspective, you could see significant pullbacks of 10 to 20%. We wouldn't be surprised as investors start to take a look at where, what are the actual valuations we're paying, and do these make sense?
All right, Lamar Villere Co partner and portfolio manager. Appreciate you coming on to address that with us. Thanks again.